Hey, hey! Today's practice is bridges and some bridge variations. We'll combine a bit of what I love about bridging in yoga and a bit of what I love about bridging in a somatic or embodied Pilates. So I've got one yoga block with me. If you have one, grab it, bring it to your mat. I'll meet you in Ardha Shavasana, half corpse pose. Okay, let's do this. So I'm starting with the soles of my feet fully grounded. My feet and knees are about the same width apart as my hip joints. If I try to reach down and touch my heels, I've got a good few inches between my fingertips and my heels. And then I'm going to bring my palms face down on either side of my hips. We're just going to work with a little bit of pelvic movement first and some nuances in cueing. So forget about every cue you've ever heard in any other class you've been in, and just ground into the soles of your feet, ground into the palms of the hands. Imagine creating a little more length along the back of your neck. And then I want you to even more firmly press your feet down into your mat. And then imagine you're going to lengthen your tailbone toward your heels. So perhaps with that, you get just a little bit of a subtle pelvic tuck and then relax that. So often what we hear is something about pushing our low back down into our mat. So rather than thinking about pushing, which is kind of synonymous with compression, I want you to think about grounding into your feet and lengthening your tailbone toward your heels. So let's try that again. Press into the feet, lengthen the tailbone toward the heels, and we get a little subtle pelvic tuck. Relax that. So this next time we're going to start the same way, but then we're going to think about continuing to lengthen that pelvis and then starting to lengthen and lift, imagining that that tailbone is just going to float up and away between your shins. So big inhale to prepare, pressing into the hands, pressing into the feet, starting that exhale, lengthen your tailbone, lengthen, 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 lift as you start to peel that spine up off your mat a little bit at a time. We're going to find the top of that, what we would call in yoga, our bridge pose. Pause at the top. And we would also call this bridge in Pilates. So I want you to think about having your pelvis right between your knees and your shoulders. So often what we see in yoga is we really hike these hips up into the air, even coming into a little bit of spinal extension. I want us to stay a little more neutral here. So find another big inhale, and then as you exhale, start to slow roll that spine or articulate that spine back down onto your mat. Letting that low back gently rest down onto the mat without pressing. And then once the glutes and the tailbone touch down, that low back lifts a little. So let's do that again. Grounding into the hands, grounding into the soles of the feet. Big inhale to prepare. First part of the exhale, lengthening tailbone toward heels. Keep lengthening, lengthening, lengthening. That tailbone is just going to fly away between your shins, coming all the way up. Find the top of that bridge where the spine is still neutral rather than starting to get into a back bend, and pause. Beginning to slow roll that spine back down onto your mat. Again, letting that low back just very gently rest toward the mat. And then when the tailbone glutes connect, we let that natural space return between low back and mat. So we're going to do that one more time. We're going to pause at the top, and then we're going to add an arm variation. So again, imagining your length and your movement with breath. Inhaling to prepare. Exhaling, lengthening that tailbone. Start your slow, mindful lift. Find the top of your bridge. Head, neck, shoulders relaxed. Core gently engaged. Lower body gently engaged. Rotate your hands so your palms are now facing in toward the center of your mat. And then imagine you're going to keep your upper arm bones fully seated into your shoulder joint while you start to float those arms up so fingertips point toward the ceiling. Pause, check in with how your shoulders are feeling here. If you have further to go, continue to float those arms up overhead until biceps frame the ears. And then we'll float those arms all the way back around. Make sure they're seated all the way down into those shoulder sockets. All the way back down to the floor, Turn the hands palm face down, rest the hands, slow roll spine back down onto the mat, and then moving into knees to chest pose. So in our yoga practice, apanasana, we bring bent knees into the belly, we bring the hands to the knees, and then just find a little movement as feels good. Could be rocking side to side, could be rocking tailbone to shoulders, could be drawing some knee circles in the air. And then bring yourself back to that half corpse pose. So soles of the feet come back down to the mat. Palms are resting alongside the hips. But we're going to bring our legs just a little more narrow than we normally would in our bridge. So they're not touching. They're just a little closer together. We're still going to ground in through the palms, ground in through the soles of the feet, and we'll start the same way. Big inhale to prepare. Imagining that tailbone lengthening, 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 creating space in the spine as you lift up rather than compression. Find the top of your bridge where your spine is neutral, and then without shifting your hips, see how much weight you can bring over to that left foot, and then without shifting your hips, see if you can float that right foot, and then extend through the knee, press the heel up toward the ceiling, single leg bridge. Pause here for a couple breaths in single leg bridge, or with that foot dorsiflexed, toes pulling back toward shin, pull that leg down until thighs meet. Plantar flex, point the toe, bring it back up, flowing down, flowing up. We'll find a couple more breaths this side. And if you're flowing, go ahead and bring that leg back up. Bring it all the way down to meet your left. If you shifted those hips, go ahead and level them out. And then we'll slow roll our bridge all the way back down. When you get to the bottom, finding that knees to chest pose, bringing those bent knees into the belly, finding whatever movement feels good. And getting ready to move into our single leg bridge, second side. So we're going to bring those legs just a little more narrow. So we have support, palms face down, feet pressing. Inhale to prepare. Exhale, lengthen that spine as you lift. Find the top of your bridge. Check in with where the hips are in space. We're going to try to leave them where they are while we bring as much weight as we can over to that right foot. Float the left. Extend the knee, press the heel. Pause here, find your breath, or lowering, point the toe, lift. And finding one more full breath cycle or flow. Making your way back down to bridge, leveling the hips. Slow rolling the spine back down onto the mat. Inviting those bent knees in toward the belly. Release your left leg back down onto your mat. Just let the sole of the foot rest, or it can come long. Let your right hand come to your right kneecap, and then using that hand, guide that knee in some circles in the air. Switch the direction of your circles. Bring that knee back into the chest. Bring the left knee in to meet it. Squeeze. Release the right leg. Left hand to knee. Knee circles. Switch directions. Bringing that bent knee back into the belly. We'll bring the right leg into meet. Give both knees a little squeeze. And coming back to that half corpse shape. Pressing the soles of the feet down into the mat, knees are bent. See that you have your yoga block handy, or if you don't have a yoga block, a couple of small pillows stacked on top of each other, or a rolled up blanket. We'll end in a supported bridge. So beginning the same way, firm palms, firm feet. Now our feet and knees are again in line with our hip joints. And we inhale to prepare, start to lengthen that tailbone away from the body, using that sense of drawing long to lift the spine. Find the top of your bridge, grab your bolster, pillow, blanket, block, whatever you have. If we're using a yoga block, we're on the medium or low setting, and we're gonna slide it under the tailbone. So we're not all the way down under the glutes. We're not all the way up under the low back, but we're right in the center, right on that coccyx tailbone. So we've got a little bit of glutes, maybe a little bit of lumbar spine, and as we come down, we shouldn't have anything uncomfortable in the low back. Allow the hands to find a place to rest that's comfortable. And if you already found a nice juicy bridge that feels good, stay here. Another option would be to begin to slide or walk your feet away from you, eventually bringing those legs all the way out so the knees are mostly straight, and we start to get some nice passive stretch in the front of the hips and hip flexors. So find a supported bridge. It feels good, and we'll just rest here for a few breath cycles. And if we're in that extended bridge, starting to activate the legs so you can start to walk or slide your feet back in, bringing those ankles back under the knees, pressing into the soles of both feet, lengthening that tailbone toward your legs. Slide your pillow, bolster, block out of the way. Slow roll that spine back down onto the mat. When you get there, move into one last knees to chest pose, making it whatever feels good in your hips and your low back. And I hope you enjoyed playing around with a little bit of bridge pose, and now you can flow right into the next part of your practice.